The ocean is unpredictable. At times it appears calm, silent, almost welcoming. But in a single moment, it can become an unforgiving force. This is the true story of a man who did not survive for days or weeks, or even months. He survived 438 days lost at sea. Over a year, drifting across the Pacific Ocean. Alone. Exposed to hunger, thirst, heat, storms, and complete isolation. This is not just a story about survival. It is a story about what happens to the human mind when time itself disappears. This is a real story. Against all odds. Salvador Alvarenga did not fear the sea. Born in El Salvador, he grew up around fishing, learning early how to read the water, the wind, and the sky. The ocean was not an enemy to him. It was work. It was routine. As an adult, he moved to Mexico and settled in a small coastal fishing community. Life there followed a rhythm dictated by tides and weather. Fishing trips were rarely dramatic. They were repetitive, exhausting, and familiar. Salvador had been on the water hundreds of times before. Nothing about this journey felt unusual. And that was exactly what made it dangerous. In November of 2012, Salvador prepared for another fishing trip. The boat was small but functional. The supplies were basic. The plan was simple. He would fish near the coast and return shortly after. He was joined by a young and inexperienced crew member meant to help with equipment and nets. The weather forecast showed nothing alarming. The ocean looked calm. The sky was open. There was no sense of urgency, no feeling that this would be the last normal day for a very long time. They pushed away from shore, unaware that they were leaving behind more than land. They were leaving behind time. Not long after reaching open water, the weather began to shift. At first, it was subtle. A change in the wind, a slight drop in temperature. Then the sky darkened. What followed was a violent storm, far stronger than predicted. Waves crashed into the boat. Rain blurred vision. The engine failed. Communication equipment stopped working. In the chaos, all control was lost. The storm did not just damage the boat, it erased direction. When the storm finally passed, the sea returned to an eerie calm. But nothing was the same. They were no longer fishermen. They were survivors. With no engine and no radio, Salvador and his companion were at the mercy of the ocean. They did not know where they were. They did not know which direction land lay. At first, there was hope. They rationed food, they conserved water. They believed rescue would come. But days passed, then weeks. Food disappeared quickly. Fresh water became rare. The sun burned relentlessly during the day. At night, cold air drained what little strength they had left. The boat drifted endlessly, carried by currents neither man understood. Days blurred together. The ocean looked the same in every direction. Time began to behave differently. After the first month, survival became routine. Hunger no longer felt urgent, it became constant. The body adapted in disturbing ways. Small portions felt like enough. Food was no longer about taste, it was about staying alive. They survived by catching fish and seabirds. Everything was eaten raw. thirst was worse than hunger. Rain became a miracle. When it came, Salvador collected every drop he could. When it did not, desperation followed. The young companion weakened quickly. His body could not endure the conditions. One day he stopped responding. There was no dramatic moment, no final words, just silence. Salvador was now completely alone. Solitude changed everything. Without another human presence, time slowed even further. Salvador spoke aloud just to hear a voice. Sometimes he imagined conversations. At night, darkness felt endless. The stars offered no comfort. Hope faded slowly, not suddenly, not dramatically. It simply disappeared. Survival was no longer about rescue. It was about today, then tomorrow. Nothing beyond that. Months passed. The ocean became an enemy. The sun punished him daily. Salt burned his skin. Storms brought terror. His body deteriorated. He became dangerously thin. Movement became slow and deliberate. Pain became background noise. Discomfort became normal. Time lost all meaning. Days were no longer counted. Weeks blended into nothing. Sleep came in fragments. Dreams invaded waking moments. Eventually, hallucinations began. Shadows on the water, voices in the wind. Sometimes he believed another boat was near. Other times he feared he was losing his mind. There were moments when death felt close. Storms that nearly overturned the boat. Days without food. Long stretches without rain. More than once, Salvador prepared himself for the end. But death did not come. Not because he was strong, not because he was lucky, but because he adapted. Even when strength was gone, even when hope was gone, adaptation remained. One day something changed. The color of the water, the shape of the horizon. At first, Salvador thought it was another illusion. But the shape remained. Land. After 438 days lost at sea, ocean currents carried the boat toward a remote island in the Marshall Islands. When the boat reached shore, Salvador collapsed. He was barely conscious, unable to stand. Local residents found him and gave him water and food. He had survived over 1 year drifting across the Pacific Ocean. When his story became known, many doubted it. But experts studied the currents, the distance, and the evidence. Everything aligned. The story was true. Survival did not bring peace immediately. Nightmares followed. Silence felt overwhelming. But Salvador was alive, and that alone made his story extraordinary. This was not a legend. This was not fiction. This was a true story. A story lived against all odds.